Evening, everyone. Good to be with you all. It's Monday, 20th of May, and yeah, feeling just so fortunate to be able to share what's on my heart today with everybody here in the space. What is the first step? Step one is all about accepting the problem, accepting the challenge, owning up, taking responsibility, facing the cold hard facts. I typed in my description. So the tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. This comes out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I wanted to read something for you guys here quickly. So it says, in 1935, a stockbroker named Bill W., who was down on his luck because of his drinking problem, sat in the kitchen of a house on Ardmore Avenue in Akron, Ohio. This specific house belonged to Dr. Bob, a physician who had the same problem. He simply could not stop drinking. They sat over a cup of coffee discussing a letter the broker had received from Carl Jung, the famous physician and pioneer of psychotherapy. In the letter, Jung told Paul W. that if their new group was to achieve any level of success, they had to pass on their stories. Essentially, the key to success was to help each other as opposed to acting alone. Thus was born the telling of the story that has been the cornerstone of the AA. The framework these men developed has helped millions of people, not only alcoholics, gamblers, compulsive overeaters, and sex addicts, and their partners have all benefited from the original insights of Bill W. and Dr. Bob. Those who tell their story admit that they have a problem, while the listeners affirm by acknowledging that they had the same experience. This transaction reduces the shame for all involved and supports them in the common commitment, which is to stay sober. So storytelling is super, super powerful. It's the mode by which human beings carry over wisdom and knowledge and insight from one generation to the next. And as Jordan Peterson has famously said over and over again, that these stories that we share or that is captured in the form of fairy tales carry grave and emotional and intense and sometimes horrific stories or lessons that we have to unearth and discover. So when parents, for example, tell stories, the children always object if a piece is left out because they know that there's a gaping hole in the story. So one might ask why the children want to hear these stories again and again and again. Since they already know them so well, the answer is that storytelling is not just about passing on information. It's actually also about relationship. The child feels bonded in that he or she is part of the story because there's sections of the story that's been left out. And if they can remind us that there's parts left out, then they are part of the story. This connects to our earlier discussions about addiction stemming from a failure of intimacy. 12-step groups actually begin a rebonding process that helps people make up the deficits of the past. Members of a 12-step community are accepted for who they are. Such bonding holds incredible importance, and an additional example will illustrate why this is so. When Amnesty International victims first attempted therapy to help torture victims, they got nowhere. Victims of torture, even though they were miserable, resisted help at a most profound level. Eventually, staff made a discovery. If torture victims could tell the story of their experience to a room full of other people who were torture victims themselves, an acceptance of the experience occurred. The victim was then able to bond enough to make therapy succeed. The same happened with drug addiction and alcoholism. Professionals tried to help for years, but it was not until AA provided a format for alcoholics to tell these stories that therapy could actually work. Most addicts have experienced deep trauma in their lives. What's more, being an addict of any type is traumatic in itself. These people need a safe space with other people who know their story before it's being told. This is so exciting. This is profound because it ties in exactly with this view that I've been talking about over and over for a number of months, basically now. And that is that shared brokenness builds stronger bonds than shared beliefs. And here at Grace Online, we welcome these stories of pain and horror and devastation and brokenness and betrayal and hurt and whatever other pronouns or whatever not pronouns, what other verbs you'd like, or whatever other words you'd like to put to that. We welcome these stories because they are gold. They are healing to the soul of the listeners, to the rest of the people in the battle stations and in the Band of Brothers community. We listen to these stories and we value these stories because they are so similar to our stories. Our stories may have well been written by another person. And in the sharing of these stories, we learn new realities and new truths that would help us to not make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. So I'm unashamed, a recurring addict from pornography and sex addiction. And I think this is the greatest gift that God has ever brought across my path. And I really am appreciative of this fact that He has blessed me enough to learn wisdom and principles of recovery that is eternal and valuable and amazing. And each and every single person that joins a process like this will tap into this this intangible wisdom, source of wisdom and brilliance. Obviously, it's a horrible road to get to us, but once people knock on the door and they enter into it, we start to transform their lives by listening to their stories and accepting them, separating identity from behavior. Listen, no wife will stay around to entertain her husband if she did not believe deep down in her heart that he is actually a good person and that he just struggles with this horrific behavior. And here is a place for acceptance to be practiced, and like a unashamed acceptance. Like, it's horrible what you went through, but now you've come home. You are now amongst a band of brothers who know exactly what you felt like, even though our stories are different. The core of it is exactly the same. So, what is the first step? The first step is to admit that I've got a problem, and then to reach out for help and to join a winning team of people who are making their lives matter by sharing their stories in our amazing battle station groups. So thanks for listening to me tonight. That's been 8 minutes on the dot, or 8 minutes and 7 seconds now. I hope you all have a fantastic evening further, and I'm looking forward to be connecting with you again tomorrow morning, soon after quarter